What's up guys, Kenny here from 619 Guitars and Gear, and we're out here in the shop. It's super hot out here right now, so pardon my look of just looking like I ran a marathon. I turned the fans off and everything so we can make this video. But I was out here thinking, you know, while we're waiting for paint to dry on the LTD project, instead of sitting here and watching paint dry, we can maybe start another project. I've always had this idea of making my own modern twist on the Eddie Van Halen Frankenstrat, and obviously a lot of people are influenced off of him, a lot of guitarists and a lot of people in general, for all the things he's started for, you know, rock and metal. And yeah, I just think to pay tribute to him, it would be pretty cool to make my own modern version of a Frankenstrat. So going through all my guitars and seeing which one would probably be the best, I thought it would be really cool to start with this Ibanez GRG131DX. You know, it's already white, red, and black themed, so it would be a perfect platform to make a modern day, you know, modern version of the, you know, the Frankenstrat. Obviously it's fixed bridge and doesn't have a Floyd, but you know, I don't want to make an exact replica because there's so many of those around. I figured why not maybe make like a modern day, you know, twist on it, which I'm sure there's a lot of those too, but I've never done that, and I've always wanted to try my hand at doing a Frankenstrat and see what I can come up with. So I figured this would be a great time to do it, and this is a perfect guitar for a perfect platform to do it with. So let's go ahead and get this thing disassembled. All right, so we got it all laid out here. Got all my tools ready. Usually I do like, you know, I speed up all the footage. But I think for this one, what we'll do is we'll go back and forth where, you know, I'll talk as I'm disassembling. I think it'd be a lot cooler. So as always, we got to start by taking the strings off. Obviously, this guitar already doesn't have pickups in it, and it's missing a high E string. So we're going to go ahead and take the rest of the strings off, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we got the strings all unwound. Obviously I forgot my string winder, so I did it with my fingers. No big deal. These strings I just put on, so I'm actually going to keep them because you never know when you need a spare string. I'm probably a hoarder when it comes to that, and I have like a bag of old strings that is probably a little bit out of control, but like I said, you never know when you need a string. If you pop one, you can't get to the store right away, so I always save them. So let's go ahead and pull these through. All right, so we got the strings off. The next thing I want to do is let's get the pick guard and all the electronics out, and then we'll go ahead and remove the neck. All right, so let's go ahead and remove this pick guard. Now for as far as parts, you can use whatever you want, but I mean, I could put all these screws and stuff in a big pile and I pretty much know where everything goes. It just comes with, you know, doing it a lot. But to save yourself the hassle of losing screws, you can go ahead and buy one of these dividers. I'm sure they're like a couple bucks at like, you know, Big Lots or a Family Dollar or something like that. You might be able to find them at a dollar store, it depends. And what that does is you can pretty much divide each section of the guitar and put it in one space here. So, you know, all the pick guard screws, you can put in one space, and that way you kind of divide each part of the guitar up into its own separate little divider here. That way you don't lose anything. It's kind of the way I've always liked to do it, and when it comes to reassembling, it just makes things a heck of a lot easier, honestly. So let's go ahead and get this pick guard off. All right, so we got all these screws out. I did have active pickups in this thing last. So there's a battery in here. I'm just gonna go ahead and break these wires off. I just wanted to do it for a quick video, so I didn't really go out of my way to make everything nice and neat. And here's all the screws and springs for the pickups. I stashed them in here so I didn't lose them. So we're gonna take those out and put them in its own container. And then, yeah, obviously when it comes to electronics, you can leave them in the pick guard and just disconnect the wires at the output jack and just pull them through. Just take pictures of, you know, where everything's at. If you haven't done this too much and you don't really know, you know, what you're doing as far as that, you can always just take pictures. That way everything goes back exactly where it needs to be. So I'm just gonna go ahead and break the wires off because I'm gonna restrip and resolder everything anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's not too much of a big deal. All right, well, we got the pick guard off, we got the output jack off. Now we're left here with the bridge and the ground wire for the bridge. What I should be able to do is, I'm not sure, it's probably obviously just making contact with the bottom of the bridge plate here. So I'm not gonna go ahead and pull it out. I'm gonna go ahead and take the bridge off first, which on this Ibanez model, there is just 4 Phillips head screws. All right, so we got all 4 of the bridge screws out. We're gonna go ahead and remove the bridge. But first, I did notice something pretty cool. I've had this pick guard off and I noticed it the first time, but there actually is a route for a single coil in the middle. So that's actually really cool, and it's gonna help us when we go to, you know, do the whole Frankenstrat thing. It'll look, we can probably do the whole 3 or 5-way switch here in the middle. Hopefully, if not, we're gonna have to do it up here at the neck pickup. We'll figure something out. Like I said, we're gonna try to do it as close as we can, but I do wanna put my own theme, my own twist on it for sure. So we'll go ahead and remove the bridge. And like I said, the ground wire is kind of just sitting there. And kind of baffles me that there's paint on the bottom of this bridge, so it probably is not getting the best contact as it could. There should be a sanded bare spot, in my opinion, just to get the best ground contact that you could possibly get. So that's probably something we'll do when we go ahead and reassemble it. So we'll put that away here. We're going to pull this ground wire out, twist it up just so it's reusable. Well, obviously a lot of this stuff we're going to reuse, so. Definitely a great platform to do what I want to do here. We already have a white base down, so you know, we can do the black stripes first and then tape off where we need to for the striping and then do the red. So, you know, half the work's already done for us, which is really cool, honestly. So now we're going to move on to, I'm going to go ahead and take these strap buttons off. All right, so now we got pretty much all that disassembled. Now we're gonna go ahead and get the neck off of this thing. All right, so we'll go ahead and flip this around here. And in this case, we're flat against, you know, the workbench. If you have it propped up on like one of those neck holders, just make sure you always are holding the neck while you're unscrewing this so nothing collapses and you're not putting extra unwanted tension and you know, risk pulling the neck out of, or pulling the screws out of the neck or something like that. You just don't want to damage anything. So if you're working down flat like this, obviously have some kind of cushion. But if you're using one of those neck supporters, definitely keep a hand on it so nothing comes apart while you're taking the screws out. So we'll go ahead and use a fatter screwdriver for this because these screws are a little bit bigger. And there's no neck plate on this guitar, so it is 4 recessed neck screws with the little metal grommets here. Do it in a cross pattern. I've never had this guitar apart, so everything's nice and tight from the factory. And voila. That's nice, no shims or nothing, so that's always good. All right, so we got the neck off. Now we move on, we'll take the tuners out of the neck. All right, so we got the neck off the body. Now we're gonna go ahead and remove the tuners and the truss rod cover. I love Ibanez truss rod covers, how you can just swing the little door open. I don't know why other companies are on board with that whole idea, unless it's like patented or something, but I think it's awesome and I think it's a great idea. And I would love to see that on other companies. So we're going to take the nuts off and then the Phillips head screws. The nuts are a 10 millimeter. Usually you can just use a socket by hand unless, you know, they're really yammed on there, which they shouldn't be if it's done correctly. You should be able to just break it loose without a ratchet. And then we're going to use a little Phillips head for the screws in the back. So let's go ahead and remove the 10 millimeter nuts. Now make sure you do not lose the washer. See, these are breaking loose very easy, no problems at all. And then we're going to do the same thing. I have the assortment bin over there, and we're going to put these in there in just a second here. First, we're going to remove this truss rod cover. 3 screws on that. I really love these truss rod covers. I cannot say that enough. I think it's definitely a great thing. It beats having to unscrew it every time. You know, if you see even a lot of really good guitarists that do like adjusting their stuff a lot, they'll just take the truss rod cover off and leave it off, honestly, because yeah, they're always making adjustments. Maybe if they're touring and always having to compensate for temperature and humidity and stuff. But I love this little invention. I wonder if you can actually, I should look it up. Maybe you can buy just like generic ones, because I'd love to put them on like all my guitars. I think it's a great invention. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and flip this over here, and we are gonna remove the little screws in the back. These like to strip. A good way that you can prevent stuff from stripping is obviously, you know, pre-drill holes if they're not already there. But you can also put a little bit of wax on the screw. Some people use like a wax paste or candle wax or something like that. Just put a little bit on the threads. That'll actually help it screw in a lot easier, and it'll be easier to get out if you ever have to maintenance something. So I always try to do that. And obviously if you're putting a little screw in, and there's not a hole pre-drilled, always definitely pre-drill the hole. It'll just make life a lot easier. Some of the hardware you get online, these screws are horrible and like to strip, but you can, you know, prevent that most of the time by just a little bit of pre-drilling and a little bit of wax. So good little tip. So we got those screws out. Now we're gonna go ahead and pop these tuners right on out of here. And what I like to do is just screw the, this one's nice and tight in there. I like to screw the nuts and the washers right back onto here. That way nothing gets lost, and it's just less you have to worry about, honestly.
All right, so now the tuners are off. The nut I'm not going to take off because there's no reason to. I have to decide what I'm going to do, if I'm going to paint match the headstock. I might not. We'll have to see. There's a little bit of a tiny chip right here. And there's definitely some overspray on the sides of the headstock from the factory. What I do love is the red binding and the red typical Ibanez inlays. I really like that they're red, and I think it's going to go great with the whole Frankenstrat theme. So I just definitely one more thing to add to this whole project. So now that we got that all apart, I think we're going to go ahead and take all the electronics out of the pick guard. So we'll go ahead and grab that next. All right, well, we got the pick guard laid out here. What I'm going to do now is obviously take the knobs off first. This pick guard is actually set up for dual humbucker because that's how this guitar comes, but it'll be the same process for pretty much any of your pick guards. Will be relatively similar. So we got those loose here. Pop the knobs off. All right. Now I don't have a wrench. The way I put, the pots I put in here, I did a video where I put EMGs in a cheap guitar. That was the whole, idea and point of the video. And I kind of just had to throw some, pots in and, the wiring in that I had laying around for some active pickups. So I kind of just threw in what I had laying around. So, stuff doesn't exactly match. The pot nuts, the potentiometer nuts are two different sizes. So, yeah, I don't have a wrench here. So carefully, you can use pliers. Just be super careful and don't scrape up your pick guard, especially if it's like a customer's pick guard or something. I usually will just break it loose initially and then use my fingers the rest of the way. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and pop this little white cap off for the 3-way switch here. Now this originally came with a 5-way switch, but when I put the EMGs in here, I just converted it over to a 3-way. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that out of here. All right, so we got the electronics, the 3-way switch, and the 2 pots out of the pick guard. Like I said, if you're desoldering stuff, you can take pictures so you know where everything goes. I mean, once you do this long enough and a bunch of times, you pretty much can, figure it out, and it's the same idea for most guitars. But if you're unsure, just take pictures and it will definitely help you out in the future. So we got this all disassembled. Now we're gonna move on to the next step. Here is the final result of the container. As you can see, everything is organized, and each section of the guitar that we took off is in its own little compartment. It just makes things a lot easier when going back together. This is usually the way I do it all the time. I suggest you buy one of these. Like I said, you can get them at pretty much any kind of dollar store or any kind of craft store like that. Definitely just makes your life a lot easier. So I suggest buying one of these, and yeah, you'll thank me later. There's like giant flies flying around in here. Anyway, I'm dying. It's super hot in here. I have all the fans off, all the doors closed because I was getting eaten by mosquitoes. And then I wanted to turn all the fans off just so nothing comes over the microphone. But as you can see, we have the whole guitar disassembled. We have all the hardware off of the neck. We have all the hardware off of the body. Obviously the neck is off.
Next would be to sand down the body and get it prepped for taping off. I wish I could use the white to my advantage, but I really can't because the order I have to do the paint, it kind of just would be a pain. I would have to reverse mask the first set of stripes, and it would kind of be more work than it would be just to sand it down and put a black base on, honestly. So I wish I could use the white to my advantage, but I'm not. I'm still going to think about it. Maybe I can come up with an easier way. I am going to keep the red binding because I really like it and I want it to match the binding on the neck still. And I'm probably most likely going to do the back to match the front like it's supposed to be. And yeah, that's pretty much where we're at now. This video is mostly just the disassemble, which will be part 1, and then part 2 will be starting to sand some stuff down and mask it off. And yeah, we're gonna flop back and forth to projects, just like I said, in the intro. While there's downtime, there's no sense of just sitting around when we can be recording footage for another video. So that's what we'll do. While that's drying, we'll work on this, and while this is drying, we'll work on the other guitar. So just stay busy, and that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next part where we'll get this sanded up and taped down. So see you in the next one.